Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco. Sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
Well, it's time we head off again to a forest totally unique to Madagascar, the Spiny Forest. Andowahala National Park is a land of extremes, ranging from mountain rainforest to desert dryness. It's also home to the Spiny Forest, a place that almost defies description. Not quite a forest, not quite a desert. It looks pretty nasty. Maybe that's why almost 100% of its plants are found nowhere else in the world. Well, the hunt is on. I'm looking for the sifaka here, and this is one weird place. It's full of plants with spines and barbs that'll prick you or scratch you. And every one of these plants, well, none of them are found anywhere else in the world. It's a weird place. Okay, time to get back to business. My mission? To find the elusive sifaka. That is, if I don't impale myself. I've decided to head off on my own because these sifakas are really shy, but I'm beginning to understand why they call it the Spiny Forest. You gotta be so careful here. Man. We've got something up ahead. This could be the jackpot. Come on in. We've got some beautiful, beautiful sifaks. This is an incredible opportunity to be this close to wild sifakas. Oh, this is amazing. You can see how long their back legs are. Their back legs are about 35% longer than their front legs. And that's what gives them that frog-like appearance when they vertically cling and leap. They hold on and then push off with those incredible legs. Oh. And those beautiful forward-facing eyes. Oh, this is fantastic. I have never been this close to a wild sifaka before. Shifak. Do you hear that? That's how they got their name. This is wonderful. It's the first time I've ever heard them doing this. They're obviously alarmed by our presence, and they're letting all the other lemurs in the area know that we are potentially dangerous. This is fantastic. To be able to see them actually doing their alarm call. We're in the middle of a lemur conversation. What a day. But wouldn't you know it, just when I thought I had seen it all, Madagascar has another end-of-day treat for me. Check this out. Come here. A whole group of ring-tailed lemurs just came in. Perhaps no other animal is the symbol of Madagascar quite like the ring-tailed lemur, with their long striped tails and fluffy fur coats. There they are. They're moving out. And I can't believe they just showed up. They're just retreating to the forest right now to find a nice place to sleep. And look at this. It looks like I'm part of their pajama party. What a thrill! I'm headed for one of the greatest natural experiences on the planet. Life experience that is unbelievable. have literally traveled the globe in search of nature's best. And here, in Western Canada, might be one of the most beautiful and important natural habitats in North America. Stretching along the majestic Rocky Mountains, this is the Eastern Slopes in southern Alberta, Canada. This small piece of pristine wilderness is the last 1% of the northern Great Plains that still has a full complement of wildlife. Animals like the grizzly bear, cougars, wolves, deer, all call this place home. It's also a landscape full of rare flowers and grasses, with many of those species living here and only here. And its importance in the natural world cannot be overstated. This is really a story about nature and development. Behind me is this incredibly beautiful wild landscape that's been kept beautiful and wild by the ranchers that have lived here for over 100 years. But about 30 or 35 years ago, it was nearly turned into a subdivision. And if it weren't for a few key players, that may well have happened.
This band along the edge of the Rockies behind me, although it looks big, actually is only about 1% of the northern Great Plains that's still fully functional.
Meet Larry Simpson. Born and raised in these parts, he is very aware of how special this place is. He also works with the Nature Conservancy of Canada, and for the last 20 years, it has been his passion, his goal, to try and save this natural paradise from development.
It has a remnant of wildlife populations that existed right from the last ice age until the buffalo disappeared. Bears, wolves, and cougars, all sustained by the big space. Truly a unique place, as unique as the Serengeti of Africa. This is this little tiny piece that's left here, and we're struggling to try and make sure it's available for future generations.
My mother used to tell me, don't judge people. But I can't help but have one way to judge people, and that is how they relate to the land. It seems such an important thing to me, is how do we really relate to the land?
Meet Charlie Russell, conservationist, rancher, and all-around good guy. His home, which he calls the Hawk's Nest, is a modest cabin sitting high above the valley. Charlie was a part of the very first group of locals who decided to save this area before it was too late. That was 1972. And 40 plus years later, he's still at it.
Yeah, I've lived on this land all my life. My grandfather homesteaded here in 1905. The place has always been part of my life, and it's been very important to me because it's taught me how to relate to land, I think.
How would you explain this kind of place to somebody who's never been here before? How would you describe it to them?
God's cathedral. I just find that it's the most moving, emotionally moving place to come out here, and you just feel like, oh, that's all that's needed. Yeah, it's breathtaking.
Just like Charlie, Tracy Latham calls this place home and currently manages a ranch in the area. Like Charlie, she believes this area needs to be saved and thinks a good place to start is how ranchers like her relate to the land.
I had lived in the Northwest Territories in the late 80s, early 90s, and when I came back down south, I was really shocked by the fragmentation. There was no wild spaces. So to find this Front Range is as wild as you'll find down here.
Man has to have some brakes on when we come to our land use. We tend to use it too much. we tend to use more than our share of things. And so we need places that aren't developed, because the rest of the things that live here need to continue to live here. Especially animals like bears. People are so out of touch, they're so afraid that they can't live with those animals. So if there are people around you, you pretty well don't have bears.
This whole idea of a relationship with nature, especially grizzly bears, is a big idea, and it's one that Charlie knows something about. You see, about 20 years ago, Charlie and his partner built a cabin on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. Here they took orphan grizzlies and reintroduced them to the wild. And the reason he did that was to try and teach people that humans and grizzlies can live together. And since the Eastern Slopes is big bear country, the idea of harmony, our ability to live side by side with animals like bears, is key to saving this place.
There's many examples of how we're forcing out wildlife and birds and everything. We are a scourge on the world, and we have to have a different relationship with nature, or we're in trouble. I think we are already in trouble, and places like this show some intelligence of not being too greedy.
The ranching economy that was here was vital to keeping that space intact. By about the mid-1990s, the ranch economy, the economics of ranching, couldn't compete anymore. And so the die is cast. Ranchers are not selling to ranchers. They're selling to people who are going to build homes. And this fragmentation of the last 1% is now unfolding before our eyes. And I'm feeling like we're in a race to see how much of this land can we keep intact and functional to inspire us, our kids, our grandkids.
When we return, what will it take to save the Eastern Slopes? For over 40 years, a group of people have been trying to save this last 1% of the northern Great Plains. Change can happen quickly. This was the size of this special landscape. Today, only a sliver remains. It's been a long, difficult journey, but through the efforts of the Nature Conservancy of Canada and some dedicated partners, this once impossible dream could happen.
What I can do is, to the best of my ability, look after it, protect it, and hope that the world recognizes it as a place with value. Humanity needs wild places.
Meet Julia Palmer, third-generation rancher and New Age thinker. And this is important because if the Eastern Slopes are to be saved, the ranching community must be a part of the solution.
I believe this is incredibly important. I have chosen at this point in my life to really try to make that happen, whether it's through range management practices, working with organizations like Nature Conservancy of Canada, where we try to enhance stewardship, encourage a diversity of species, and look after that whole chain, whether it's how we live with grizzly bears successfully, how we manage for elk, and at the same time earn a living and ranch successfully.
So what can ranchers do to make a difference? One example, Julia has decided instead of leaving her cattle in one field for weeks at a time, like many ranchers do, she moves them every 3 days to mimic a herd of buffalo. I mean, think about it. For thousands of years, millions of buffalo would roam this very land and graze along the way. But even with that many buffalo, the lands remained healthy and the grasses flourished. It's a simple idea, and it's working.
It's been really exciting to work with the Nature Conservancy. Ranching can be quite isolating in a funny way. You get so caught up on what's happening on your own piece of land or on your own little ranch that you sometimes don't realize there's maybe better ways of doing things. So Nature Conservancy has really made an effort to pull in experts from across North America and even the world to how do we do this better? How do we leave a wonderful legacy?
Do you feel that the Nature Conservancy of Canada has actually made a difference here?
I really do. I think they've helped preserve a lot of the landscape. It seems like a lot of the young people are not staying to continue the ranching. And a lot of the people then are breaking up the ranch and selling it. So I would hope to see in the future the Nature Conservancy taking over more and more of the ranch lands and just making a broader, wild landscape that we can preserve.
If we were talking about the last 1% of the Serengeti, would people be motivated? I'm sure the world would say, oh my goodness, don't let that happen, let's get involved. Here we sit in North America, and arguably in Canada, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and we're talking about the last 1%. And if we can't find a way to address that, then what does that say about all the other environmental challenges we're going to have in the world? Is this a priority for our society or not? I'm hoping it will be.
I hope that people can reconnect with nature. It's a big thought, but we become so disconnected from everything to do with nature. It's a problem in our lives. There's less and less of the world that we can really go out and connect with nature. We really are a part of nature. We just have to decide what part we want to be, whether we want to be a positive part or a negative part.
This is an incredibly important effort. I've been following this project since the mid-1990s. And when I think about the importance of preserving this last 1% of the remaining habitat that exists here, it's a project that we simply can't fail on. We have to make it work. We have to work together, not just for the grizzly bears and the wolves and the elk and everything else that comes with this incredibly wild landscape, but I think we need to do it for us. We need to do it for people. It's part of who we are. It's our heritage. My hat's off to all those people that have been working so hard to bring this project forward, to making it work. We're in Mexico, searching for what some might consider a tourist. A migratory species more familiar to the US or Canada, but it's here that the monarch butterfly spends its winter. Most monarch butterflies have a short life, living a few weeks at best. The monarchs in this forest were born in Canada or the northeastern states, and like their parents and grandparents, they spend the first few weeks of their lives feeding and sticking close to home. Then, one day in autumn, no one knows exactly what triggers or guides them. They take off on an incredible journey, flying more than 3,000 kilometers to a completely different world. This is an astounding experience. I have butterflies all around me. I can hear the gentle flapping of their wings continuously. Monarch butterflies may be the ultimate creatures of habit. Every winter they flock by the millions to the same forests in Mexico. Using an internal GPS that still baffles scientists, it will fly up to 8,000 kilometers across strange territory to a home it has never seen. Every year, a new generation of monarchs flies to this specific region of Mexico. It's a tiny part of the world, about 60 square miles. So tiny, the locals managed to hide it from outsiders until 1975. Now there are 11 designated sanctuaries within this area, protecting millions and millions of butterflies.
This is one of the 11 sanctuaries. It's called Sierra Chingua.
There's thousands of them crowding every one of these trees. The branches of these fir trees are actually bending under the weight of the butterflies. They are all over the ground, throughout the air. It's as if we were in a cloud of butterflies. The energy expended by a monarch to reach this sanctuary is phenomenal. Remember, this is a creature that weighs less than a paperclip, and it flies about 80 kilometers a day to get here. Pound for pound, it's the equivalent of a human walking around the world 11 times.
We're about 3,000 meters above sea level. Temperature's constant here. It's perfect for the butterflies to overwinter. It chills down at night, allowing them to save on their metabolic energy. And then during the daytime, it warms up like this, especially at this time of the year, and they go off and find nectar and moisture.
They cling to the pines for 5 months, huddling together for warmth.
In another month, they'll start migrating north.
When temperatures rise, they ride the warm spring breezes to Texas and stop to mate, and the cycle starts once again. It will take 3 generations of monarchs, living 1 month each, to make their way north again. That a tiny caterpillar morphs into a beautiful butterfly is a miracle in itself. But the mystery of the 4th generation migrating to Mexico boggles the mind. There's nothing like it in the natural world. An experience of a lifetime.